Welcome to the MultiCultural Mindset broadcast. Your host is Dr. LaVerne Hanes Collins, a licensed professional counselor, award-winning trainer, and keynote speaker. Dr. Collins is the author of Overlooked: Counselor Insights for the Unspoken Issues in Black American Life. Dr. Collins has also been a featured monthly columnist in the American Counseling Association's Counseling Today magazine with her Honoring Diversity column. Now, here's Dr. Collins.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the MultiCultural Mindset, where we explore the topics of race, faith, culture, and trauma related to the mental health and well-being of Black Americans. I'm your host, Dr. LaVerne Hanes Collins, and I am glad you decided to join in for today's podcast. Here at the Multicultural Mindset, we are shaking off the things that we learned from culture and society, and even from our academic institutions that lead us to try to fix Black people or blame Black people and label deficits in Black people. And truthfully, not just Black, but any marginalized group. And today I am beyond excited about our conversation. As you can see, if you're watching rather than simply listening, I am on camera today with a very esteemed guest in the person of Dr. S. Kent Butler, who is going to share his insight on culturally sensitive counseling, but with a particular emphasis on intersectionality. Now, you may know of Dr. Butler. He holds a PhD in educational psychology with a concentration in counseling psychology from the University of Connecticut. Dr. Butler is a professor of counselor education at the University of Central Florida. He is a past president. He was the 70th president of the American Counseling Association. He held that post from 2021 to 2022. He is an ACA fellow and has hosted ACA's weekly vodcast, The Voice of Counseling. He formerly served as the University of Central Florida's Chief Equity, Inclusion, and Diversity Officer, and has also served as a faculty fellow for inclusive excellence within the Office of the Provost. Presently, he serves as faculty advisor there to Chi Sigma Iota International Honor Society, the Counselor Education Doctoral Student Organization, the Project for Haiti Nights, and the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Dr. Butler is known across the country and internationally. He is a mover and a shaker. He is an influencer, and I am so happy to call him my friend and brother. So, Dr. Butler, thank you so much for being here today.
Dr. Collins, thank you so much for having me be here. It's a beautiful thing that we can share in our knowledge base together and be good friends and also be colleagues as well. So this is a phenomenal time.
Absolutely. And we share some of the same passionate interest in our profession, helping to bring down some of the ideologies, helping to disrupt ideologies that have been prevailing, but that don't work for Black and Brown people and for other marginalized or racialized groups. So I'm going to dive right in. Let me ask you this. When we talk about intersectionality, for anyone who might not know that term, intersectionality, can you define and explain that just to set the foundation for our conversation today?
Sure.
What is intersectionality?
All right. So it's a concept, right, that describes how all of the parts of who we are as an individual. I really think of it in terms of who we are, everything that is a makeup of our story, our narrative, right? And so the systems that are in play, especially here in the United States, they are somewhat unequal, right? They don't give us the opportunity to kind of show up who we are based on our gender, our race, our ethnicity, our sexual orientation, gender identity, whether we have a disability or not. And so, and depending on what class we are in, right, whether it's middle class, upper class, lower class, those types of statuses show up in how we represent ourselves and how people see us, right? And so when we walk into a room, especially as a Black male, when I walk into a room, sometimes all those intersections are playing a serious part of how I am treated or how I'm interacted with. And so I can't just walk in and be myself, because if somebody has an issue with me being a Black male, somebody has an issue with me being 6'4", if somebody has an issue with me being a professor, all those different things kind of show up. And then I have to then now respond in kind based on that, right? And so it's unique to me, but the dynamics of it all and the effects or the impact of it is also based on how the systems see me. And the systems being individuals who are kind of coming up in the system, and the system that is not made for us. You said disrupt. It's a great word, right? Because we know that the systems that we are in box us in to be individuals who are not necessarily seen as the golden children.
Right. Right. Excellent explanation. That brings so much clarity. I'm sure that's helping people who have maybe heard that term and really didn't quite know how to interpret that. Let me ask you another question. Then, why is intersectionality essential to a multicultural mindset in counseling?
Based on what I shared earlier, it has a lot to do with the fact that, especially a counselor working in relation with clients who are having serious issues, regardless of how they show up, um, what ends up happening in counseling is that if I come and I just am multifaceted in how I see you, and I treat you based on all your intersections, then I see you. But if you walk into my office and I don't see that, the wonder of you, the beauty of you, and I just focus on, okay, you're a woman and you're having an issue, and that's the only thing I focus in on, then I'm missing out on all of the nuances of who you are as an individual. And so coming
Exactly.
in and understanding from a multicultural perspective is that, okay, she's dealing with this particular issue, but how is all these other things impacting that? How is her being a mother impacting that? How is her being a sister or a daughter impacting that? When, it's not just, some kind of vacuumed situation where, you can isolate it out and say, this is just who we are dealing with. And I think that our counseling theories and the way that we have practiced in the past has always been that one aspect. Okay, you come to counseling for this, and then, okay, that's it. And so many of our colleagues see it that way, right? They're like, okay, just go fix the problem. Just help them work through whatever that is, and not take into any consideration all the other things that are impacting that issue.
And I can think of some examples that I have seen. I have, a woman, say, for instance, I'll be general, a woman comes in because she's having problems experiencing anxiety.
Right,
And if you don't look at every aspect of her life, even going back to her childhood, but when I look at a woman and I see a woman about my age,
right,
I'm aware that she grew up during the heat of integration, segregation battles, civil rights movement. And if I
okay.
see that she was born and raised in the South, that tells me that she experienced those years probably in pretty hostile territory.
Most
And if
likely.
I, yeah, and if I go straight to, well, let's work out an anxiety management plan and don't look at the fact that this anxiety may have been seeded because perhaps she was the first person to integrate an all white school or something.
Right, exactly.
But if I'm not thinking about what it means to be someone of this age
Hmm.
growing up in the South, I miss it.
Yes.
So the intersectionality there, what you're saying is that if we are not careful we will use a cookie cutter monocultural anxiety is anxiety is anxiety is anxiety approach in our counseling, and we will miss the mark.
Miss the mark. And that's why it's important to even add the social justice piece to that as well, right? So take it from a school counselor perspective, right? You have a student who's acting out in the classroom and is getting in trouble. And the school counselor is called in to kind of meet with this student. And then a family member, the mother or the father, is called in. They're working 24 hours a day, basically, because they have to make ends meet. And they get called in. And then they wonder why this parent is hostile or upset because you're taking money away from them because they're minimum wage workers, right? And so you got this person coming in and you're saying, you know what, your child is this. And then you get this blow up, right? This parent is now upset because not only so you think about intersections of this, right? So now you're messing with their money. You are now also challenging that their child is struggling or doing something incorrect in the school. And what that brings back, you talk about going back into history right now. So now they remember their times being in public school and how they were treated. And so what comes into that room is all of that. It's not just that the kid got in trouble. It's all of that. And then
it's all
they're saying, well, why is this parent so angry? Or why is this parent doing this or doing that? Or they're not really positive parents and they don't take good care of their kids and all those things that come out in these scenarios, right? And the fact of the matter is you have not taken into consideration any of that.
You've not looked at the person in context. And, you know, there was a time when for us as counselors, it was seen almost as unethical to examine anything other than that person's inner world.
Right.
When you started getting into anything that was not about the inner world, you were seen as maybe not doing the work of counseling or as being out of bounds, so to speak, or out of step. You mentioned the multicultural, essential social justice advocacy model. And I'm wondering if you think that, I'm going to say this, I'm going to ask this, why is that no longer going to work? Why is that inner world only going to work in 2025 in the context in which we are showing up today? Why won't that work? Why is that unethical now?
I think because, you know, let me just take it a step back and just say, culturally, especially for people of color, and I'll speak specifically for Black Americans, right? African Americans. And, you know, we come from a very collectivistic environment, right? Where, you know, while we may still hold things close to the vest and we might want to go to our pastor or something like that to deal with issues, but we're really community oriented. And so you take that and you look at a white individual, typically a white male, and they come from a very individualistic piece, right? And so the counseling was set up in that way as well, right? So you have an individual who in their lifetime has been taught that it's inappropriate to talk about these taboo subjects. And it's inappropriate for you to bring up somebody's socioeconomic status, or it's inappropriate for you to dig deeper or to, and use Dr. Norma Day Vines' term, broach, right? It's inappropriate to do those types of things. So that's how they were taught counseling, that they can't do those types of things. And so what they do is they teach their counselors or clients or students who are in their counseling programs, they teach them that white way, right? That you can't, you know, that you can't do that. I've been taught all my life never to do that because that would be intrusive or that would be this or be that. So that mindset is what's unethical in counseling. Because in order to help somebody, you need to kind of understand the story. Now, you don't need to know the whole story, but you need to know aspects of their story to help them move forward in whatever they came to counseling for. And so the social justice piece becomes more of an ethical model or should be inserted into that ethical model in a way that we get out of our own way
Mhm.
and we stop listening to these narratives in our head that say that we can't do this, we can't do that, because that is what's harming our clients. That we won't sit in and dig in and be in the heat of it with them. We don't care with them. We don't
Mhm.
heal with them. We don't
Mhm.
allow them to be able to see themselves in the scenario in a different way. Because if it doesn't come out as this is the white way to do it, and I'm saying that specifically on purpose, right? The white way to do this, then you won't heal yourself.
Wow. I'm so glad you brought up the individualistic versus collectivistic models because those that dichotomy right there is a key distinction
Yeah.
in culture
Mm-hmm.
that really affects everything. You might wonder why a grandma of 80, my grandmother was, oh my gosh, she was must 78 when she took in a 2-year-old and she raised that 2-year-old until she graduated from high school. So all through her as an 80 something year old woman, she was raising a teenager and she did an amazing job. But had she gone to a counselor who didn't understand the family values of collectivism and you make that sacrifice no matter how old you
No
are,
matter
they would
how,
have told my grandmother,
right.
you let that child go back with a mother or an auntie or somebody else because these are
You're
your
too old.
years and you need to be
Right.
focusing on you. And my grandmother would have looked at her like, are you crazy?
Right. Exactly.
And
The reason why
we
is
we
that so that adds to the whole reason why even we don't even throw our grandparents out, right? We don't take them to senior centers and
not if we can help it.
convalescent homes or all those other things because part of that collectivistic part of who we are as individuals is to take our family in and to care for them until
Yes.
the end, so to speak.
Exactly. And there's a grieving and a mourning that goes on whenever a family member, a grandparent, a parent is in a position where that actually is the best medical solution. There's a
Right.
grieving. It is hard. It is hard for many African Americans to let go and to make that decision because culturally they've grown up and gone into adulthood believing that that's just not right. That's not what we do.
Yeah.
And when it's
The
necessary,
value system.
it's hard.
The
The
value
value
system is
system.
different. It's totally different, right? In terms
Exactly.
of we don't
Yeah.
cast people away.
Exactly. And it's in how you define it.
Hmm.
Because when I'm working with someone who is struggling with that decision and they say something just like that, I can't believe I'm having to put her away. I can't believe I'm having to cast her away. That's not what we do. And you have to, what I will often do is invite them to uh, tell the part of the story that they haven't told themselves yet about their situation. But you
Right,
have to get into that
right,
without blaming them, without trying to fix that value system that they have.
right. And helping them to understand how they can live within their means too, right? And
Yes.
so while
Yes.
that may not be what they want to do, it may
Mhm.
ultimately be what they have to do. But
Right.
in regards to that, you're helping them to understand that, well, this is the type of care this person needs, and this is what you
Needs.
need to be able to do for yourself, and this is what self-care
Yes.
looks like for you. And so it
Yeah.
changes the narrative, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you are forcing this person now to make this decision without any understanding, but you're helping them to see the full picture so that that
Mhm.
healing process is easier for them,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that they can now say, okay, well, maybe I can step away from this. Maybe I can see the value in this person being here instead of here,
Mhm.
and then I can change up how I interact as well, right? And so
Yes.
maybe now I know that I have to visit this place more, and I have to do this differently, and I have to do and I have to raise myself up differently and my children differently in how they see
Hmm.
this. But
Hmm.
I don't feel the guilt and the blame and the shame of not taking care of my family member
Right.
um, because of my value
Right.
system has
Right.
I'm looking at it differently. I'm looking at it more clear,
Right.
right?
Right.
And that's ethical in terms of how we as
Exactly.
counselors help them get to that space.
Exactly. And in that regard, when we think of ethical decision models, the
Hmm.
ethical decision models have to be approached with the appropriate cultural lens. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so as there are people who are helping to develop that model. Or,
Yeah.
I even think of it from the American Counseling Association's lens, right? They have an
Mhm.
ethical board that sits in and that looks at how things are created. They come up with the ACA Code of Ethics and things
Mhm.
along those lines. So they are in the process of looking at that right now. How they do that in the past, it was maybe with individuals who showed an interest in ethics, right? And maybe they weren't people of color. They weren't people who were coming from the LGBTQ community. They weren't people who seen themselves as non-binary, or their gender identity was different. All those different things weren't people who were in the space before. Before
Mhm.
it was very, very isolated in how they saw the ethical code.
Mhm.
And the people who
Mhm.
were making those decisions didn't look like us, didn't look like the world. And so those decisions, that what would it take to be ethical in this particular situation, is now coming from a lens of a Eurocentric or a very individualistic way of or point of view. And now the people who are at the table, people who are able to sit in intersectionally, now we have people who can kind of bring voice to many, many aspects of who we are as individuals. And so that's
Excellent.
from the spiritual lens. That's from the person who might be agnostic. All those things are now in play, so that we are now looking at this globally. We're looking at this in a way that we are not causing any harm. So if our job is to cause no harm as counselors, then we must see it through the lens of all individuals. That's the multicultural way.
And that is also a decolonization of our profession.
Oh, for
Can you
sure.
speak about decolonization broadly?
So when I was president of ACA, I took on two hashtags. And if you recall, one of them was shake it up, and the other one was tap someone in. And it was purposeful in that we had to shake up a system that helps people recognize that people were being denied. And so now we're talking about all these, especially from a political lens, where people are saying, oh, you're too woke, or you're this, or you're that. And so they're doing all these things to harm the movement forward, right? The evolution of what this world really should be. And so we got these individuals who are in these systems that have been made for white men, that structurally have been made for white men. You see them moving forward and being able to thrive, and others are on the outskirts and not able to have access, right? And
Mhm.
so there's a book that I typically look to. It's called Building a House for Diversity. And within that, it talks about it breaks it down. So it's such a cool way that they break it down, right? It's that the systems, this is what the system is. And they use a giraffe and they use an elephant, right? And they say the house that was built, the system that we're in, was built and designed specifically for the giraffe. Okay. And so the hallways, the rooms, the structure, it was tiny, it was this, it was that. It wasn't any way that it was forward looking, it wasn't embracing anyone else. But the giraffe and the elephant became friends. And the giraffe says, hey, I want to invite you in. I want to have you be, okay, tap you in. I want you to be here. But when the elephant came in, started shaking things up, right? Because the design of that structure was only for the giraffe. And so when he tried to walk through the door, and it was too wide, and he started to break the walls, or the shifting, the giraffe said, no, you can't be here.
Mhm. Mhm.
So we have to build a structure that allows the giraffe and the elephant to coexist in that space. And so
I love that.
decolonization is the building of structures, a system that is inclusive of all, that doesn't ban books, that doesn't tell people that they're woke. It actually recognizes that people are allowed to be there, to have access. If we're saying that people should be pulling themselves up by their bootstraps, then how are we allowing them to do that when the door, after they pulled them pull straps, is still closed?
Still closed. Yeah. And sadly, unfortunately, we've heard that we've got to get into the Black and brown communities and give them mental health education. They're not coming. And we have shamed and blamed people for not coming through
Yes.
doors, into a system that was
Right.
never built for them, never
Never built,
designed for them. So it's like
never
blaming
opening,
the
never welcoming.
never welcoming, like we'd be blaming the elephant for standing outside saying, I'm
Right.
not going in there.
Right. And wondering why they didn't come in, right? It's like, when I come in, you looking me up and down. When I come in, you're glaring at me. When I come in, you start to pick at me for this thing or that thing. When I come
Right,
in, you racial profile me. When you come
right.
in, you are using somebody else's past behavior on me instead of letting me come in and be who I am in that space. You don't know anything about me, but yet you have
Right.
already classified me to be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, you've been labeled and and then they want to fix you and they want to blame you, etc. And what we're talking about essentially then is adopting anti-oppressive,
Yes.
socially just advocacy and treatment models that are culturally responsive. Now, I just use some big words, some heavy hitting words that a lot of
Yes.
people don't want us to say. They don't
Yes.
want to hear anti-oppressive, don't want to
Right.
hear socially just, don't want to hear cultural responsiveness because they
Mhm.
don't want to hear the word racism.
Right.
So, what would you say to someone who holds that belief?
That they need to find humility, and cultural humility is the one, right? And so what
Okay.
that is recognizing that, again, it goes back to what I shared earlier. Lessons that people were taught,
Mhm.
they need to kind of dismantle, right? They need to break
Mhm.
through those things, right? Because it's at no fault of their own, right?
Right.
A baby didn't come into this world to be racist. And if you look at the children as they grow up, you see that there's a change in how they see others based on how they were raised, the caregivers that have been in their life, right?
Mhm.
And so if you're taught that you're better than,
Mhm.
or that this person is less than, or this
Mhm.
person doesn't do right,
Mhm.
just because of the color of their skin or who they love or who they kind of interact with, all
Mhm.
those different things, if you're told that those people are the problem,
Mhm.
and you don't point the finger at yourself as to, okay, how do I contribute to this problem?
Right.
Then
Right.
you don't learn the lessons, right? And
And you
so
remain a part of the problem.
we can't learn to be with others. We can't learn to love others because we have been so ingrained in the fact that we're not like them or they're
Hmm.
not like us. And so
Hmm.
therefore you have to treat them differently.
Yeah.
And something, I was riding my bike today and I was thinking, because I'm in Florida and I'm always concerned, right? I always, as I'm riding my bike, think that, okay, they can see me, I'm an open target. If somebody wanted to run me down, they could, right? But I continue to ride my bike, right? Because I show up because I'm taking care of myself. I want to make sure that um, I'm here for my daughter, and so I'm staying healthy, all those different things, right? But the person who sees me and blows the horn, I've had this happen a couple of times, and yells something out of the window or
Mm.
whatever have you, those people don't see me or see my life or see that I matter, right? And so I'm bringing this up because I want to show that if you can't see me and allow me to be in a space without there being some type of negative reaction on your part, then there's some soul searching that you have to do to understand where that's coming from. Because if I'm showing up, if I'm just walking into a space and then that brings anger or hatred into your heart, then I'm not the problem. That's something that you have been taught. And
Mhm.
so the dismantling of that, the decolonizing of that, the showing up and telling people that they have to do some work,
Mhm.
right? Because, you know, and where is that coming from? They'll point the finger and saying that, the person who is coming across the border that's immigrating into the United States is the problem. Well, are they the problem? Or is the way that you see them coming into the world or coming into the country the problem? Have
Yeah.
you been taught that they are the problem, when the problem actually is perhaps those who have corporate power, those who are CEOs of companies, those who own businesses, those who are in the upper 1%. Those are the people who are telling you that the people who are coming across the border to try to make a better life for themselves are the problem. And
I
so
love what you said,
dismantling,
soul searching.
so we have to dismantle that. We have to dismantle that because they want us to continue to fight down here when they
Hmm.
are living up here making profit off of the fact that we are down here fighting like that. And
Yeah.
so those are the narratives that need to be shared. Those are the things that need to be dismantled. And those are the stories that people who have hatred in their heart need to understand, right? And then they'll know that they've been played.
Mm,
And
they've
so
been played.
they've been played. And how do we
They've been
break that?
played.
How do we break that cycle? And
Yeah.
so that's again, that's what we do when we talk about intersectionality. That's what we do when we talk about breaking down systems and decolonizing and dismantling. It's not a harmful thing. It's about creating a space for all of us to be included in.
Mhm.
When you think about it, when the people who are in positions of power, and again, white men who are in positions of power, they're telling you, no, 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 no. We don't want that. You don't want that. You don't want there to be diversity. You don't want there to be DEI because, and then you're like, why? Why is it that you don't want that? Because
Yeah,
it preserves their way of staying in
exactly.
power.
Exactly, exactly. It disrupts what they want to continued as the status quo for
Yeah,
their perceived benefit.
perceived benefit, but
Perceived.
again, and actualized for some of them. But the truth of the matter is, when you look at how they are structuring or pitting people against one another when it comes to DEI, it's shameful, but it serves a good for them.
But only them. There's
Right,
nothing universal and global
right,
in terms of benefit to humanity, broadly speaking, in
exactly.
those ideologies that are self-serving.
Right. And
That's just,
then the funny part about it is that narrative that they make, especially when they racially profile me as being a violent person or an angry person or whatever have you. And the flip of that is when you look at the power structures across the globe, who have been in positions of power who have done wrong and done dirty? Majority of them have been white men, right?
as
And
in
if you say,
Hitler,
okay, well,
as
who's the
in,
black? You say, and I was like, name a black person or a black leader who has been doing that. And most times, the only time somebody can ever come up with any name would be Idi Amin or something like that.
mhm.
And I was like, okay, that's one, but look at that you all have had, and look, and if black people wanted to come for you, which they could,
Mm.
they haven't. In how many years? They've only been asking for access. They haven't come to try to dismantle or burn down or
The
whatever.
capital or anything, or right.
Exactly right. But yet, when we talk about the welfare mom, or we talk about this or that, who are we pointing the finger at? And everybody's looking at this person, right? Black jobs, right? There's a narrative there. There's a reason why those things are being said because they want to keep people believing that people of color are the problem.
It's the deficit narratives, the blame game, they need fixed. And if we can go back a little bit in history,
Yeah.
I think about the Moynihan Report from the
Yes.
1960s that suggested that the Black family was crumbling and
Mm.
needed to be rescued
Mm.
and saved, so to
Yes.
speak.
Yes.
And that was the problem with education. That was the problem with employment, the Black family, and
Mhm.
suggesting that Black fathers were absent or inadequate, and that Black mothers were disproportionately single heads of homes, and
Right.
I mean, and the
And
reality was that
in that narrative, they never talked about the fact that they were racially profiled and incarcerated unfairly, and that they were always taken away from the home. They didn't talk about it. They can even go back into the slavery times and when families were broken up. So you can't say that the Black family is not intact when all you ever tried to do was
keep it from being intact. Yeah. And here's the other thing that is not widely known is that the percentage difference, I believe it was for the percentage of female headed homes,
Mhm.
was minuscule. It was just a couple, like a percentage point or two different,
Yes.
but that gap was presented as if it was ginormous, and it really was
It
not.
wasn't. But
It
again,
really,
people who in positions of power have the ability to spread the narrative that they want to.
they tell it the way they want to
and
tell it,
and and you
right?
know and you know freedom of speech, all those things. It drives me crazy to think about how people are saying, you don't have freedom of speech. Well, we don't. When you keep banning things, but you have the right to say what you want to say. You can
Right,
say anything you want to say. You come out of your mouth
right.
and say anything you want to say.
Anything.
But if I say something, then that should be banned.
Yeah,
That shouldn't be that. No, no, no. You can't say that. I say, well, that
yeah.
goes against what freedom of speech is, isn't it?
Well, freedom for who?
Freedom from who?
Freedom of speech for whom?
Yes.
I love what you are doing. My goodness, we could keep talking and talk till next week. But I want to give you a chance
Okay.
to tell us about this book.
Intersectional counseling skills. Yes, yes, yes,
Yes,
yes,
this
yes,
is
yes,
it.
yes,
This
yes.
is a
Thank you.
phenomenal textbook. Please tell us a little bit about how this came to be, and what a person can expect, how we can use this great publication.
Sure. Okay. So I have a really great relationship with Cognella Publishing. My first book came out. It was a book that was designed for intro to counseling, which had a multicultural and social justice feel to it. What we found in doing that book was that people were like, oh, I'm going to use this book for multicultural. I'm not just using it for intro. So now a book that was designed for intro to get students into understanding how to bring the cultural competencies into the mainstream became a book that was now multifaceted. It could be an intro or into multicultural class, right? So that's one aspect of it. And so with that relationship being formed, um, I was like, well, the next step is skills, counseling skills, right? And so techniques courses. And so what do we need to do? What do we need to know? How do we help students learn? And not just students, but how do we have people who are in counseling careers learn different intersectional identities, or understanding how to work with different things? And so the book has been designed to bring people who have expertise in certain areas. So it's your typical techniques textbook, but it has a very multicultural flair to it. It has a social justice flair to it.
I love
And
it.
those individuals who are teaching it from a lens that, or who have written those chapters, I should say, are helping those of us who are educators teach from an aspect of openness, fairness, ethical behavior, and all those things. And so the multicultural social justice counseling competencies are a ribbon that runs through each chapter. And the showcases of individuals, the case studies, the way that the chapters are written are so that people can actually even bring able to, like, if it's written from the aspect of an African American client, you can also interject in there a Hispanic client or an Asian client. You can find ways to kind of bring that into that aspect of it. And so that's what the hope is for the book, right? It's that don't just read it and say, oh, this book is just about African Americans. No. How do you now take this, and how would this situation look differently if it was a person who's come from Asian descent? And so it helps to open up the mind to kind of get people thinking outside of that. And so normal textbooks or normal techniques books have always taught from that white lens, that Eurocentric lens of, okay, this is all you need to know, how to do this or how to do that, how to reflect feelings, how to reflect meaning, how to be creative in this particular space. And so we're looking at it totally different now. We're talking about, okay, yes, but now what if it was this kind of a client? What if it was the LGBTQ client? What was if it was this? And changing up how we are able, and helping also those who are instructors to kind of think outside the box. Because if they're limited, right, again, and they probably are, if they're limited in how they see the world, this book allows them to now have different ways that they can approach it and have real good, difficult dialogue in the classroom about what these clients bring to the table when they are in our offices.
I love it. I say thank you for this amazing contribution, yet another one of your amazing contributions to our profession. Thank
Wow,
you,
thank
thank you,
you.
thank you, and congratulations
I
on
appreciate that.
another
Thank you.
successful publication. Let
So
me
they're
ask
they're
you
coming
this.
at me to write a group book now.
Oh, do it. I
We'll see.
do it.
We'll
And you
see.
know what else I say too about textbooks?
Uh-huh.
I've not as graduate school a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important that we continue to refresh our bookshelf, our bookcases. You can see mine
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah, I
behind
see
me
it back
here.
there. Yes.
With that, we keep our bookshelves fresh with
Mm-hmm.
textbooks that are relevant,
Right.
even once we are out of our academic
Lifelong
programs.
learners.
We have to be
I
lifelong
still have
learners.
my books from when I was, and it's been a number of years. I still have my books, but I kept them on purpose. There'll always be something I can go back to, but I
Mhm.
also have to evolve, and I also bring
Exactly.
in new things that are helping me kind of
Exactly.
understand what the world is. And because, again, it's not a Eurocentric way of counseling that's necessary anymore.
Right.
It's one.
And if, yeah, the people that came along, I mean, my classmates in the
Mhm.
1990s at one of the very early universities that was KCREP accredited, the language, the perspectives, everything that I learned, I have spent the rest of my life unlearning.
Unlearning, because we learned from fear. We learned that,
Mhm.
okay, we can't teach that, or we can't say that. Oh, don't do that in the class. Don't get that person to talk about that because it might help them heal. It's like we're blocking someone's progress because we're afraid of ourselves. You talk
Mhm.
about don't bring yourself into the counseling session, but you are bringing yourself into the
You
counseling
are bringing
when
yourself
you're
into this
bringing
one.
your fear or those things that you don't know how to understand or don't want to understand.
Yes.
If you don't
Yes.
tackle that, if you don't do the work, the self work,
Yes.
right? If you
Yes.
don't find a way to love yourself so you can stop
Yes.
hating on other people, then you're never going to be able to help your clients.
Yeah,
You have to
exactly.
get out of your own way.
You have to. Exactly. So I strongly urge, even if you're not a professor in the academy, you're not a university instructor, this
Yeah.
does not mean that you don't need to read this book, because those of us who are in private practice, or clinical supervisors, or senior counselors on staff, we need to stay on top
It's
of,
opening your mind. It really what it
yes,
is it's opening your mind to other possibilities and say that, you know what, maybe I didn't learn it all. And
yes,
I can find other ways. And if somebody is telling you that this is what they need from you, then
mhm,
you owe it. The ethical thing for you to do is to learn how to do it
is to
and
learn
come
how
from
to
that
do it.
perspective and help bring
Yes,
them to their healing, right? That's the whole process, is to help them heal, not to help you think that you help them heal, but that you actually help them heal.
help them heal. You didn't fix them, you help them heal.
Heal.
Healing.
Yes.
This has been such a wonderful discussion, Dr. Butler. I thank you
I
for
thank you.
being a guest on this brand new podcast. And I
Hey.
hope you don't mind. I want to have you come back
Oh,
uh,
sure.
at some other
Sure,
time, and
sure,
we'll
sure. We have
continue.
to
Yeah.
work out how we can get our little podcast together. We could be a team. I'm always looking forward.
Always looking for collaborations and collaborators. Me too. Absolutely. Now, I'm going to put at the end of after we sign off today, I will
Yes.
put a link for purchase of the book with a discount. You'll get all the details for how to order this book for yourself and actually save some money too. Is there
Yeah.
anything else that you'd like to say, Dr. Butler, to our audience today?
Just thank you. I just want to say I am so proud of you and the work that you're doing, and that you are putting yourself in spaces that weren't allowed for Black women to be in. You are an entrepreneur. You are a blessing on the lives of so many people, and you continue to do it unselfishly. And so, what I say to your viewers is that, continue to pump up Dr. LaVerne Hanes Collins and all Black women who are out here in the struggle.
Yes.
This is about helping people to find their wellness, to find their better self. And this is what we're doing. We're not here trying to fight with people about whether this is this or that's that. We're just trying to show you that this is the way to it. This, if you say
Yes.
that you are a helper, that you want to help people, then what we're giving you and what we're providing for you, and this is a gift, what we're providing for you is access.
Yes. Beautifully stated. And thank you. Thank you for that compliment and the wonderful affirmation. Everyone, remember, creating a safe space for clients means validating their whole selves, their whole person, including their cultural and their racial identities. So let's continue this journey toward cultural responsiveness and cultural humility together. And we're doing it one step at a time. Thank
Amen.
you for joining us today. As always, if you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to subscribe to my channel, leave a review, share it, hit like, love, whatever you're allowed to hit and whatever platform you're watching, and share it with others who might benefit. This is LaVerne Hanes Collins signing off. Remember, coming up, there's going to be the instructions on the next screen for how to purchase this book, Intersectional Counseling Skills. Until next time, keep practicing with empathy, humility, and a multicultural mindset. So long for now. Hello, I'm Dr. LaVerne Collins, and I want to invite you to be a part of something that is going to transform your practice. Here's the deal. For years, counselors have asked me if I provide consultation services on topics related to mental health and racial disparities and effectiveness in multicultural counseling. I've been providing trainings on these topics for the last 20 years, and I always get that request for consultation services. Well, I'm now offering a monthly consultation group on the topics that you bring to me. That's right. Every month, you can bring your racial diversity and counselor sensitivity questions to me, and I will share my insights. And this is available at a phenomenal group rate. Now, here's why you need this. We are living in a time where it is imperative that our helping presence is culturally responsive and culturally responsible in service to our practice communities. However, many counselors did not get very much education on really working effectively with Black, Indigenous, and people of color in graduate school. And many people have struggled to keep up with the current findings and the best practices for serving racially identified populations. So I've developed this monthly counseling group that meets on the first Friday of every month from 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And it's simply called Office Hours with Dr. Collins. And when you join this, I'm going to work with you in this consultation group to answer the questions that just come up in day-to-day practice, questions that come up for you and other providers, questions that you bring me about issues of race, faith, culture, and trauma. Now, this is a safe space where you can bring all the questions other folks don't talk about. You know what I'm talking about, the unaskable questions. For me, there is really no such thing as an unaskable question. And if you've participated in any of my webinars before, you know I go into great detail and deep content. So again, you can bring your own questions and learn from other people's questions. Your questions, my insight, and my 30 years of expertise on these topics. You'll have a full 90 minutes of my time every month for such a low price that you really cannot pass it up. So continue reading on this page. Get in on this now, too, because slots are limited and they'll go fast. And I'll see you during my office hours. Bye for now.